Please lead us in the pledge.
Absolutely. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Move on to item number 2. Item number 3, roll call. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller.
Here.
Division 5, Robert Paris.
Here.
Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Division 1, Drew Mercy.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 4, George Lane.
Here.
General Manager Knutson.
Here.
General Counsel Markman.
Here.
And Holly Hughes present.
Thank you. Move on to the next item, voluntary public roll call. People may be listening in with us today. We'd certainly like to hear if you care to identify yourself. Do we have one? Anyone?
Okay, let's try 5 fence 3, Jack Cephas, and go Dodgers.
Hey, Jack, welcome as always.
Thank you.
Vincent Dino, Palmdale Water District.
Vince?
Ben Stewart, Roseman Community Service District.
Yeah, thank you.
Ron Chow, Palmdale for LA Waterworks Division.
Oh, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, public comments, and bring it open to the public. If anyone wishes to address the board, the item is up later on the agenda. Now's the time to do so. Hearing no one, we'll move to item number 6, adoption of agenda, board order 5A1, 6A1. We have a motion.
Mr. President, I'll move on 6A1.
We have a motion by Director Miller and a second by
Mr. President, I'll second that motion.
Director Paris. Yeah. Matt, do you have any comments?
On item 6A1?
Yes. Although, okay.
No,
If not, there's no further questions or comments. Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Drew Mercy.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Now moving it passed. We will move to adoption of general move to item number, consent calendar 7A1. We have several items on those, and Matt, you want to make just anything?
Yeah, I can hit the highlights on this consent calendar item. So we have approval of 2 minutes, one from a special meeting of September 11th and our regular meeting of September 24th. And we also have 3 tax sharing resolutions. All 3 are properties or projects that are requesting to be annexed into LA County Sanitation District number 14 service area. And that's being served out of the Lancaster Water Reclamation Plant. 2 are residential developments, and 1 is a RV storage and self-storage facility. They're all 3 located in Lancaster. As we've discussed before, this is to reallocate the Avek's portion of the 1% ad valorem tax. So we take a short-term hit on the reallocation of the property tax, but once these properties get improved, we'll see an increase in revenue from the property tax based on the assessed value. And then Director Paris mentioned this to me yesterday when we were talking. There's also a side benefit that when these developments connect to LA County Waterworks, the retail agency, then they have to also pay capacity fees to the agency. So that's another side benefit of these projects. So those are highlights of what the three tax sharing resolutions are.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions or comments, motion would be in order for 7A1.
Mr. President.
Yeah,
this
this
is
is
Rob.
direct,
Move on
Okay,
board
go ahead,
on
Rob.
7A1.
this is Director Donald second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Director Paris and Director Donato. Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, moving right along, making good progress. We'll move to item number 8, the Finance Committee, and the chairman of that is Director Donato. We'll turn it over to
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met on, October 24th, and items, that are before you. So I'll talk about, 8A1, consider possible action to accept and file the check registry list for the period of October 3rd through the 16th, 2024, and, our general manager, Matt Newsom, will go over, some of the items.
All right, thank you, Director Donato. So began on page 41 of your board packet is our checklist that Director Donato just mentioned. We went through this as usual in detail with the Finance Committee last week. Couple of highlights. Item number 1 is a large payment to Department of Water Resources of $1.879 million. This is our monthly fixed charge cost to the State Water Project, or for the State Water Project, and this is associated with our statement of charges. So we pay this fixed amount every month, and then there's 2 larger months where we're paying cap interest and principal payments on debt, so associated with the State Water Project. And then a couple other highlights. On page 43 of your packet, we have our payment to the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors Association for just under $33,000. And this is for Avek's share of the USGS groundwater monitoring program that we've participated in and funded through a good portion through Avek for a number of years. The Finance Committee, I think it was Director Lane that requested a presentation from the USGS. So we're working with USGS and seeing when they can come to a future board meeting and give a presentation on the program and what the benefits are. Item number 51 is AVAC's share of the audit that is performed by Ernst & Young, LLP, and they audit the DWR's cost associated with the State Water Project. So again, this is AVAC's share. All of the State Water contractors contribute to this program, with the exception of Metropolitan Water District. They actually perform their own audit of DWR separately. So we're working with Ernst & Young to get a summary of their findings, and we'll present that at a future finance and board meeting. And then also we have a checklist that we have a few checks associated with the High Desert Water Bank, both capital and ongoing O&M expense associated with that project. And each of those are fully funded by Metropolitan Water District. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
It's very well laid out, and thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Is there anything further from the board, questions or comments? Okay, board order for 8A1 would be in order.
Okay, this is Director Donato. I'll move on board order 8A1 to accept the registry.
Motion from Director Donato. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Okay, thank you.
Okay, brings us to 8A2, consider possible action to accept and file the treasurer's report for the period ending September 30th, 2024, and our finance manager, Teresa Yates, will go over that.
Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening, directors. This is the Treasurer's Report for September, and the average yield to maturity for the total portfolio for September was 4.744%, which was up just 0.005% from August. The average days to maturity for the total portfolio was 228 days, or approximately 8 months. And total cash and investments at September 30th was $141.6 million, which was up $5.2 million from August 31st. And that was due to property tax revenue that was received in September of $3.2 million, and capacity fees of $1.1 million were received in September. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Teresa, we thought the rates are gonna be going down, but it appears they're not.
Well, so you'll see if we look at the LAIF rate, they went down slightly, 0.004%, which is the first decrease since October of 21, because of the older maturities that had a lower rate, and there's still investments that are at a higher rate. Once those start maturing, you'll see the decrease, but it's going to come.
There was an article just recently in the Wall Street Journal talked about the long-term bond rates are actually going up a little bit. I think you have a copy.
Yeah,
of that.
yeah, you gave me a copy of that.
Okay.
I was surprised to see that.
Yeah. I know I'm gonna have a call with John Williams at Wells Fargo, so we'll see what's happening that we can invest in now.
Well, at least they haven't taken a nosedive.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
we've done well.
Yeah.
Good job. Is there any further questions or comments from Teresa?
Okay, this is Director Donato. I'll move on. Board Order 8A2.
We have a motion by Director Donato. Do we have a second?
All second, Director Miller.
Director Miller, a second. Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's go to 8A3, consider possible action to approve a purchase order with National Oil Well Valco for replacement of 6 flocculators mixer assemblies at the Quartz Hill treatment plant, not to exceed the amount of $171,248.48. And our operation manager, Mr. Mozigian, is going to give us an update on that.
Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening, everyone. So we have one slide. I think the board, we've done this before. Last year, we replaced 6 flocculator motors and drives at the Quartz Hill treatment plant for clarifier number 2. We have 6 clarifiers. This year, we're doing clarifier number 3. We're moving down the line. We'll do 1 clarifier per year. These flocculators are the second stage of the treatment process. They keep the solids kind of suspended as they move into the clarifier. These flock drives and motors are about 30 years old, and they run 24/7. So we can't get parts for them anymore. That's why we're systematically replacing them. And we like to standardize all of our parts. So we are going with the NOV block drives and motors like we have on 1 and 2. And then we'll just move right down each year. We'll do 6 more. So they submitted a price, which was not a whole lot higher. It was about 2% higher than it was last year. $171,248.48. So we'd like the board to consider approving that so we can get these ordered.
Is there any questions? regarding Board Order, 883.
Yeah.
I just want to know if there's any downtime on anything while you're replacing that?
Yes, that's a good question. So what we do is we'll take that clarifier offline. It's a 90 million gallon day plant. So obviously we don't need all 6 clarifiers on at once. So we'll take that clarifier off. It won't affect production at all. And then we'll replace them. Maintenance department will do the actual replacement. We don't have to hire anybody to come in and do it. And the approved budget was 170,000. So we're pretty much right on budget.
How long does that usually take?
It'll probably take about, I would say probably about 2 to 3 weeks for them to do that job. It's a pretty big job, but we can do it in-house, which is nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
John, I had a question. Are those variable speed?
Those are variable speed. There's a VFD connected to each one, so we can change the speed just by, ramping it up or down. Yep.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other comments or questions? Yeah, Board Order would be in order.
Mr. President,
Okay,
approval on 883.
and this is Director Nile, second.
We had a motion, Director Mercy, the second by Director Donato. Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yep, thank you.
Okay, that brings us to 8A4 and consideration of possible action to approve a purchase order of Miracle Machinery and not to exceed the amount of 66,160.00 for the removal of spent collegiate approximately 2,400 cubic yards at the Fort Hill Water Treatment Plant. Operations Manager Bozigan will give us a report on that.
Okay, so as you all know, spent coagulant is a byproduct of the treatment process. We budgeted $150,000 for removal for this calendar year, this 2025. And since there wasn't a lot of turbidity in the water, we didn't create as much byproduct as we thought. So the company that's removed this for the last 14 years has always given us good pricing. They found a home for it. They take ownership of it once it leaves the gates, which we like. And they don't do it by weight. There's always a concern that they're going to short load or a truck, put a lot of water in it. We're paying for hauling water. The quarry that takes it by the cubic yard. And each truck holds about 20 cubic yards. And we are going to sign out each truck as it leaves. So we'll know what 20 cubic yards looks like on a truck. And we require a signature for each load from one of our people. So we'll be watching that. So the price works out to about $27.56 per cubic yard for removal. And that includes everything. That's the total cost. So it's a very good price. And we do want to get this moved so we can be ready for next summer and create some more bed space out there. Yeah.
I got a question, John.
Yes.
I was under the impression, and I think you already have done this. I think it's built into our water rates, so we'd have this money available every year.
Right. And that's a good point. As we do the rate analysis every year, we do have a component for spent coagulant removal. So it is paid for through the water rate. That's correct.
That's good. That's good thinking. So I move on Board Order 884 that we approve removal.
Second, this is Keith. I had a question. I had a
Good
question.
question.
Yes.
John, when you say check out, are they weighing those trucks? When
No,
you say sign
no,
out a truck, what do you mean sign out a truck?
So what we do is they have a 3-yard bucket on the loader,
Okay,
and
Okay.
we're gonna watch them load 20 cubic yards, and we're gonna see what that
Okay.
looks like on the truck. And then we will sign out, we'll have a slip for each truck, so we know how many trucks go out, and each truck is 20 cubic yards. That's how we pay.
oh, okay. All right, thanks, John.
No, those are good procedures you're following.
Thank you.
Well set up.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion on that?
No.
Do we, that's,
Yeah, I have a motion. I mean,
Oh, yeah, Frank,
we have a motion by Director
Thank you.
Donato.
second by Director Dias.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that brings us to 885. A possible consideration action, declaring damaged aluminum pipe and steel well shaft material as, surplus and, authorizing staff to recycle, dispose of sand material. And John's gonna go over that with us. So he went with it. The finance committee went over with him. He's gonna go over with the rest of the board.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we did go over this in great detail. At the West Side Water Bank, we have two things. One, when we bought the property, there was a lot of well column and shaft that was stacked under the hay barn that came with the property. It's unusable, it's pretty corroded. That's why they pulled it out years ago. And secondarily, when we started the water bank, we used aluminum surface main to get water to the different ponds. Since then, we've gone underground to underground piping, so we don't need this aluminum piping anymore. So we went through it. We have about 11 miles of aluminum piping. They're 40-foot joints. About 700 joints are damaged beyond repair. Aluminum pipe, when it's by power lines and you're running water through it, it creates static electricity and it creates electrolysis and it pits the pipe. So, you know, a lot of this pipe looks like the Bellagio when you pressure it up. So we separated it out. We have about 700 joints of aluminum, and our staff is going to cut these joints in half if the board approves into 20-foot sections. And then they will put it in these bins, and the company will haul it off and give us scrap price. So we checked with two recycling companies in town, SA Recycling and Alameda Metals. And SA Recycling gave us the best price of aluminum, 55 to 57 cents per pound. On the steel, you don't get a lot for steel, but it's $190 to $200 per gross ton. And then the freight is going to be $375 per trip for 2 bins each round trip. Long story short, with what we have, it's looking about $35,000 to $40,000 worth of scrap that we can we revenue for the agency. So what we'd like to do is have the board declare this as surplus, and then we can scrap the 700 joints that are damaged beyond repair. And we still have 500 joints of good pipe. And that is stacked in the yard, tied down. So if we do need it in the future for another project, we'll have it. You happy to answer any questions?
Okay, is there any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I had one question, John. All the steel pipe is bad too, or just the aluminum part of the aluminum pipe?
The aluminum's all bad. The steel is, Gary, it's pretty corroded. It's really non-usable. I think that's why, Ritter Doty pulled it out of those wells and replaced it years ago. So it's not really usable for any wells.
Okay, what was the diameter on that?
I think the steel piping is, steel piping is 8-inch column pipe, 2.5-inch drop pipe, and then 1.5-inch steel shaft.
Those are residential dimensions. Interesting.
Now, John, were you talking about scrapping that also, or looking
Yeah.
at it just so by the joint?
We were just looking at scrap price per ton.
Why not I mean, there is a market for it, for fences. They sell a lot in Bakersfield.
Yeah, I guess we could look at that. It's just a matter of marketing it, trying to market it, figuring how we're gonna do that, but
You might give that some consideration.
okay. Well, we
Yeah,
can,
sometimes, John, they'll put it in like the Ag Source, which is a magazine, that ag magazine that's out, and it runs all over Southern California. If
okay,
there's some good pipe in there, I recommend maybe we put it in Ag Source and try and market it that way, get a better price and scrap for it. You know,
Okay.
if we want to go that way.
well, sure. If the board wants to declare it all surplus, what we'll do is we'll send the aluminum to the scrap and we'll keep the steel and see if we can find a better home for it. If we can't, then we'll come back to the board and see if we can scrap it.
Gary's recommendation, I mean, probably horse people look at that,
Sure.
the Ag Source.
Yeah, we can see if we can market it that way, steel.
Okay, worth a try.
Yeah,
Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, a board order would be, we would appreciate it. Or a motion.
Mr. President, I'll move approval of 885.
I'll
Second,
second it.
Hey,
Go ahead, Gary.
motion
Gary's
second,
got it.
the board order 885, Madam Secretary.
Who was the second? Was it Gary or was it Frank?
Gary.
Gary? Okay.
Okay. I heard Frank, but it's Gary. Gary Van Dam,
yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Thanks, Sean. Good job.
Okay, we're
That
moving.
concludes finance.
Yeah, thank you, Director Donato, but you're not off the hook yet. Moving on to the High Desert Water Bank, and you would continue with that one.
Okay, let's go to, let's talk about, we met on the 23rd, the High Desert Water Bank Committee, and 8B1 is a monthly update on the High Desert Water Bank project, and our engineer, Justin's gonna give us an overview of what's going on.
All right, thank you, Director Donato. Good evening, President Lane, members of the board. Brief monthly update tonight and one action item. So we'll jump into the monthly board report. And I guess before I get started on this slide, just to let everybody know who's here with us tonight from the project team. Here in the room with us, we have a couple members of our construction management program management team. We have Paul Chow, Tian Ing, and Earl Schwartz, all from Kennedy Jenks. And I saw on the line as well from Stantec and their team, we have Joe Long from Stantec, Tim Leo, and Justin Bell, both from Montgomery & Associates, who is the hydrogeology sub-consultant to Stantec. All right.
And thank you for attending.
What we have on the slide here is kind of a summary. We've got an updated photo there on the right, and later on in the presentation, Earl's got a couple more shots, but you can see majority of the basins out at the High Desert Water Bank project site are full of water at this point in time. So it's looking really good, really cool to see from the air. Final totals for September was 5,261 acre feet that were delivered. We've delivered about 5,700 acre feet so far here in October. We're anticipating finalizing October right around 6,200 acre feet, most likely. Which would be the maximum that we've ever achieved in a single month out at the project site. So pretty cool milestone there. We're currently delivering about 125 CFS, which is around 250 acre feet per day. Final totals for basically an 11 or 13 month period, September of last year through September of this year, is 31,190 acre feet have been banked for Metropolitan's benefit, and 1,318 acre feet for Avek's benefit. And again, that does not include the one-time 10% loss. So we talked about that 10% loss factor at the committee meeting a little bit. And for the benefit of everyone who hasn't heard this in a while, and maybe some folks on the line that have thought it'd be a good idea to kind of point out that the recovery for this project is subject to that one-time 10% loss. And that the recovery is also subject to the available recoverable balance. What that means is that this project will never be allowed to recover more than is currently held in storage. So it won't be allowed to go negative, is what we're saying. So for example, if at the end of calendar year 2024, Metropolitan has 52,640 acre feet in storage, which is what we anticipate. After you factor in that 10% leave behind, their recoverable balance would be 47,376 acre feet. So if in 2025, they decided, if we had facilities available for recovery, that would be the maximum, even though our contract with them is up to 70,000 acre feet of recovery in a year. If it were available for next year, they would only be able to recover that 47,376, which is what they have in storage. So the committee thought it'd be good to kind of walk through that briefly and just point that out for everyone's benefit and as a reminder. So hopefully that was pretty clear. Question? Yes, sir.
So if that occurred and Met took all their water, 47,000 acre feet, and it was a very dry year, and Avek wanted to take Exhibit 4 water or carryover water from that location, so we'd have wet water for the aqueduct, could we do that?
I'm going to ask Matt that question.
So we could definitely take imported water that we have stored there, like the example Justin gave, or on the screen. Right now, AVAC has 1,300 acre feet there. Right. So we could take that under a second priority access. The CEQA and the Water Master storage agreement does not answer the question whether we can pump native groundwater or local carryover water from that location. So I think that would require an amendment to the storage agreement so that we could pump native groundwater.
So that would take action by the Water Master Board.
Yeah, at least at minimum, the engineer to acknowledge that.
And what we'd be looking at is if that would cause any material harm in that part of the basin if we did something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could get some comment. We'd have to work through with the potential impact is to Tejon Ranch, who operates a couple of ag wells in that vicinity. But it's something we probably should think about. Right now, we're only recovering or pumping native groundwater production rights and carryover water from Bench Ranch, Westside Water Bank, and what we call the ag wells up in Kern County.
But that would be a location where we could put wet water into the aqueduct.
Correct.
Or Port Sill, right?
To meet our needs, yeah, at various locations.
Maybe we should explore that.
Yeah.
May never happen, but it'd be good to
have that option if we're faced with it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Matt, you mentioned that 1,300 some acre feet was second priority water. Explain that.
So in our agreement with Metropolitan, they have the first priority right up to 70,000 acre feet per year of put and take. If in any year Metropolitan chooses not to use their capacity, then AVAC can use the project for its use. So I think the question originally by Director Paris was if Metropolitan chose not to use the project or they pump their maximum amount and there's still excess available, then AVAC could use that for its rights.
But we have the 1,300 acre feet. Now you're talking about the physical access to be able to draw it out?
Yeah, correct.
Not the right to use it, but it's just the ability to
use the wells and the facilities there to physically move it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a question, but that 70,000, that it would be 10% less of that, wouldn't it, under our agreement?
No, the agreement is up to 70,000 of recharge and up to 70,000 of recovery in any single year. So if they had 2 years of water,
no, that's not what I'm saying. They have to leave in 10% of that 70,000.
Yes, correct. That is correct.
Okay, I think the board needs to understand that. Okay.
Yeah, 10% of whatever they deliver to the bank is left behind.
Okay, so they can take out 63,000 acre feet of water out of the 70,000. Roughly.
So can I ask a clarifying question on that?
Yeah.
If Med had 70,000 acre feet of water after the 10%, leave behind. So they put in 77,000 acre feet. Now they have 70,000. They could take the entire 70,000 in 1 year, right?
That's correct.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Good discussion. Good questions. We'll move into the program management slide, and I'll invite Paul Chow up to give a quick summary of the work that KJ's been doing for us over the last
Hey,
month.
Justin,
Can I-
yeah, the labor.
Well, can we go back to that? Can we go
Sure,
back- Because that's a very important discussion. So we have other discussions on the table to talk about building a parallel line in the near future. That's being entertained right now?
Is that related to the?
Well, I mean, yeah, because the Met needs all the water and we need water. We're eventually gonna have to have two west feeders.
Oh, yeah, this would be just for the High Desert Water Bank site. So it has the direct input back to the California Aqueduct. The west feeder is separate and goes to our west side water bank.
Okay, thank you.
Were you gonna say
Justin,
something?
I was just gonna highlight, you show 1,318 acre feet for AVAC, but we also have water that we banked as part of the pilot work. So that was about 5,000 acre feet.
Yeah.
So AVAC truly has about 6,300 acre feet
Yeah,
at High
that's correct.
Desert. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, good point, Matt. Okay. All right. So now we'll move on to program management and Paul.
Okay,
Thanks, Justin. Yeah, so nothing too exciting from a program manager's perspective this last month. Continue to provide overall communication and tracking of activities for an entire project team. Part of that includes preparation of status reports on a weekly basis that's communicated out to AVAC and the rest of the project team. Also, this last month, our team reviewed a final well design as part of the drilling package 3 construction that's going on right now, and Earl will have some pictures of that later on in this presentation. And this last month, we also attended and participated in a couple of committee meetings, a board meeting, and we also had a discussion with the project team on the potential treatment facility for High Desert Water Bank. So that summarizes our activities.
What was the last thing you said? About the treatment plant?
Yeah, we had a discussion on the potential treatment facility for this project.
Are we doing that, or is Metropolitan Water Agency doing that?
That will be part of what we would be doing. Obviously, at Metropolitan's direction on what you want to do with treatment.
But Metropolitan's going to make the decision. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Continue.
Right. So that summarizes our activities this last month. I've been happy to answer any other questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Paul. And then we'll move into engineering and field work. And as I mentioned, we have Joe Long from Stantec on the line, as well as his hydrogeology team, Tim Leo and Justin Bell. And Joe, you want to start this slide?
I can get started on the slide and run us all the way through it. So we continue to develop the on-site power distribution facilities. We're going through towards the 60% on-site plans. That is the power system that is going to take it from the 66 kV system that SCE is building and pushing that into our well sites and our treatment facilities. We're also developing the preliminary engineering with SCE for the site plan for the switch station. We met with SCE on this particular subject, and we're getting the final requirements for from SCE to be incorporated into the site design. As far as the well drilling activities that have gone on, we have gone through well HD08, completed all of the testing and surveying, well completion report submitted to Los Angeles County. We've also completed construction and development of testings for both HD number 05 and HD 03. And Then we've also completed the drilling and construction, and development is in progress for HD01. And then lastly, HD10, we completed the pilot hole drilling, provided the well design and reaming of the overall well is in process. That is the one that Paul referred to, KJ reviewing the final design for the well casing. Our hydrogeology team is going through and finalizing the Tejon Ranch hydrogeologic modeling efforts. That is to incorporate potential effects of our pumping and our using of the water bank on Tejon's ranch and ability to pump from their own wells. And then we're finalizing the phase 3 groundwater modeling report and incorporating MWD comments. I think with that, Tim or Justin, is there anything else you want to add into? Justin Bell.
Hi, Joe. This is
Yeah, as far as the field program.
Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead,
Tim.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's nothing to add as far as the field program. Got all that covered pretty well.
Yeah, same on the modeling, Joe. Yep, you hit it pretty well. We're finishing up that work this week and hope to deliver back to the AVEC team for review. Both the Tejon Ranch and the phase 3 groundwater modeling report.
So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the engineering fieldwork.
Are we required to do that hydrology study regarding Tejon?
Yeah, we are. That was
by who?
The water master. That was part of our storage agreement. Was that we do these analyses for Tejon Ranch.
That report on the working with the Edison company, that's almost a repeat for everything we've heard the last year. And I can imagine working the Edison, that's not easy, but anyway, I hope we're making some real progress.
We are. We're making good progress with them. The meeting that we had late last week, they kind of just provided us with an update on where they're at. They're working towards, they're finalizing the alignment. We've heard good news on that they found an alignment that works well with properties that they have existing poles on. And so it's going to limit any need for easements along that pathway. So that's going really well, and they're working towards the final design of that pole line.
It seemed like they should have been done some time ago.
Yeah, it should have been.
It's electrical line.
Yeah. We're pushing on them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Joe, Tim, and Justin. Moving into budget. Not much has changed on this slide from the last month that we've seen. This tracks kind of budget that we've committed here in the center column. So you can see that to date, we've committed 49.2% of the project budget. Like I said, that hasn't changed since we haven't awarded any new contracts recently. The payout to date column has changed a little bit in these different categories, but I've got additional detail on the active contracts on the following slide. I'll give everyone a moment to take a look at that, though. Everybody good? All right, happy to go back if anything comes up. This table summarizes our active contracts. So this is what we're currently working on. I realize it's a little bit small to read as we've expanded this table to include the final column, which is the percentage of work completed. Everything is tracking very well. If you look at those final two columns, which is the percentage of the contracts that have been paid versus the percentage of the work that's been completed. Generally, the engineering tasks kind of follow with the progress payments as the work's being completed. A couple of highlights from this slide, though, if I can find my pointer here. If you look at the construction projects here at the bottom, recharge, conveyance, and construction, we're about 97. We're really more than that, but as far as progress payments goes, we're about 97% completed. We've paid about 94%. That's accounting for retention that's been withheld. But the associated contracts, looking at the construction management for that project, we've only paid about 80% versus that same, the contractors completed about 97% of the work. And then on the recharge bid support, the SDC, again, we're about 83% versus 97% complete. So that's looking really good. Similar numbers on here for the well drilling package, as the contractor's about 22% complete. But as far as construction management on that project, we've only paid out about 17%. And on the field support, we're only about 2%. There are some lagging invoices on that, but we're looking good as we manage the budgets for those projects right now. So good news there. This slide here is completed contracts. No change there. That's just stuff that we're finished with. And as we complete things from the prior slide, they get moved to that table. Account activity from the capital program account. This summarizes that. We've got a current balance of about $4.2 million. Metropolitan did recently make a deposit just under $1 million. So they've committed about $96 million to the project that they've deposited with us to date. We have one outstanding invoice to them, which is due in December, of about $3.5 million. So overall cash flow in and out of this account is being managed very well. And with that, we'll move into
for our contracts.
Yes.
Do we not keep a 10% retention or some percentage retention? Are we doing that?
On our construction contracts, we do.
And our engineering fees, we're not doing it.
We are not.
What happens if it's a claim with our engineer? For design flaws.
Yeah, I mean, there in the contract, there's things that cover, any kind of errors, omissions, or issues after the fact.
And the contract doesn't provide for 10% retention?
No, our public services contracts do not.
Probably should.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, they're not much different than a contractor. I mean, they make errors and omissions. I know my years on the board, we have went back before. In recent years, we have not. I don't know if that's correct or not, but anyway, it's something we should look at other contracts. Matt, do you have any comments on that?
I mean, just kind of what Justin said, the public contract code allows for retention on construction contracts, but professional services are.
It does not allow for it?
Well, it does for construction projects.
But for our engineers.
Yeah, I think that's a legal question. We'll have to look into that and see if there's provisions for allowing retention on professional services.
Well, I think if you put it in the contract, right, wouldn't be.
Yeah. I know. We got two attorneys here, so they can weigh in.
We can weigh in.
I mean, is it illegal to do it, or we just don't do it? That's the question. Maybe they were not prepared to answer, but
we can answer on your contracts. I don't think we've ever had a professional services agreement with the retention.
No, that's not the question. Are we allowed to do it?
You're allowed to do it. That's what's contractual.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
But if there's a claim, what recourse do you have?
Well, we do, like Justin said, we have the professional liability insurance and the errors and omissions that we require. And it goes beyond just the contract period. So
and that's a court case right there.
Yeah.
Professional liability. You right? Trying to collect on one of those?
I have not. Well, good luck, huh?
Good luck.
There's an indemnity clause associated with every professional services agreement that covers liabilities.
There's a what there?
There's an indemnity clause that's included in every professional services.
That's the question. It should be: do we have the right to the 10% retention?
Yeah.
You do, George. You do have the right.
I mean, they're really no different than a contractor. They make mistakes. And sometimes in years past, not many, but years past, we have collected from some design firms. Okay, that's finished the answers.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got the question. It wasn't easy to get the answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to construction progress report, and Earl Schwartz is here, and he'll walk us through the next handful of slides.
Thanks, Dustin. Good evening, members of the board, and good evening, General Manager. I got two projects here. The recharge project by Nicholas. They're completed with their day-to-day work. They finished the spillway change order work. So now we just have a few minor punch list items. They're to completely demob off the site by November 5th for the most part. They are doing the stop log portion of work, which was not associated with the recharge job, so they will be leaving a little bit of their equipment in non-Cajon area, so that they don't have to demob their equipment and remob it for that stop log work. But and then just a couple little small items on our project, putting a lid on and doing some gooseneck stuff on the airbags. But other than that, but all the big work is completed. And and then filing the notice of completion to be determined, and status of that is not started yet. Yep. So next slide. Let's see, I think. Okay. Oh, back a little too much. Okay. A little too much. All right. So just a couple pictures as Justin had showed. Actually, the picture on the left, you can see the aqueduct on the upper left. So this is looking kind of westerly on that location there. And so that on that slide, the left slide, even the more current picture like Justin had shown in the beginning of his presentation, the basins even filled out more. So we're really getting a lot of good recharge. Another just on the picture on the right is looking from stage 2 north area, and that's looking towards the aqueduct. So it's looking due south. I guess, again, just a little different perspective on recharging. And the recharging is all the basins are now active. So we're getting a lot of really good recharge right now. Just some more pictures on the recharge job, the spillway work that was authorized for change order work. And you can see one of the spillways that was built. There was a total of 6, but that's one of them on the left that was completed. And you can see the water that was spilling over the crest and into the basin and then down into the lower portion of the basin to start filling that up. And just some remaining work that was done within this last, September, October time frame, which was just finishing up some superficial appurtenances, putting reflectors on the bollards for vehicular purposes and so forth. Just more active work that was done, which is all completed now, but just to give you guys a look as to the significance of what work was conducted with these riprap spillways. Really, Nicholas did an amazing job. Had a lot of equipment out there, really banged them out. But as you can see, a lot of work went into those, and like I said, they did a great job. Some just more pictures of those spillways, because that was the work that was going on. Other than that, everything had been completed on the project. So that was all the active work that was happening. Basin 3 spillway on the left, Basin 26 spillway on the right. So this slides into the well drilling package 3 project that Joe Long had provided the update with Tim Leo and Justin Bell. But why that's up and down. Justin, there's that one portion here. I don't want to mess anything up. Okay, I'm not touching that. It's kind of a nifty slide. And so it shows, as they had described, that as we can see on HD8, it was the very first well that was performed by Bakersfield Weldon Pump. That is completely completed. HD5 was completed. HD3 was completed. So all the green indicating completeness on the various stages. HD1 is currently in mechanical development. HD10 is currently in reaming. HD7 and 25 and 27, all the basins have had their conductor casing, but the rig their second rig is mobilized now over to HD7. So we'll start seeing HD7 start populating in green as well as that work starts to take hold. So we're really doing very well on the drilling project. Some pictures on the drilling, that's HD3. So just a nice picture from the aerial view on that. This is the picture on the right is HD5 and when it was doing its pump development. So yeah, just different stages. Picture on the left on this one
Could
is.
you go back to that one, Will?
Yep.
Is there dikes all around that? It looks like there's a dike.
Okay, so on the left-hand picture?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's their mud development.
Okay.
Yeah, so that it'll dry. There's no impact. Tim Leo and Justin Bell had reviewed that along with Stantec on the allowance of the way that was structured. So yeah, it's the mud development from the wells. Yep. And so that will dry out, and then they will haul off material. I think Tim Leo or Justin could elaborate on that. There are some
Yeah, it was just a temporary area for them to put the high turbid water rather than, discharging that to the recharge basins. So once those run the drilling fluid and muddy water dry up, they Bakersfield was in agreement that they'll appropriately haul that away, dispose of it, and restore it back to initial conditions. I'll also just add, by the way, for the first two wells that were completed, HD8 and HD5, our preliminary analysis showed that we're seeing relatively high individual sustainable production capacity, which is pretty much on par with what we saw in the trend in the previous wells installed in the package 2 and package 1, particularly in the north side of the property. So HD8, our preliminary estimated individual capacity is looking like around 3,000 GPM, and HD5 is looking upwards of 5,000 GPM, which is similar to what we saw with a couple of the other northeastern wells, by the way. So that, just to be clear though, that is individual sustainable capacity. It doesn't account for interference effects when the entire well field will be operating, but it's just a good indication of the quality of wells that are being constructed out there. And HD3, which we just tested this last week, we're just looking at that data, but we're seeing a similar story as HD8 for that one as well.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. Yeah. Any other questions on that? I think, and then just another perspective. This is HD1, so it's at the very westerly end of the job site. And the picture on the right, HD3 again, nice aerial view of that. That was while drilling was happening. But since then, both of these rigs are moved on to HD7 and 10. So, it's a very fluid drilling. Bakersfield's doing such a great job out there that these pictures, even though it was October 4th, they're no longer as their current status. They're already, yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's about it. If you guys have any additional questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you for expanding the photos and images. That helps.
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
All right. Thanks, Earl.
Have a good night, guys.
Good job.
All right. Thank you, Earl. Yeah. And thanks, Justin, for chiming in with that news on the well. So, good news what we're seeing out there so far. And, always better to start with a higher number than a lower one, even though we'll see some interference effects down the line. So that's actually the last slide here for the monthly update. Be happy to answer any questions before we move on to the one action item related to High Desert Water Bank Committee at this time. Any questions?
Also in your board packet on page 75 is a written monthly report prepared by Kennedy Jenks. Also has some good photos and summary of the status of the project.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. President Lane, are we ready to move on to 8?
Definitely.
Okay. Director Donato, anything to lead in here, or you want me to go for it?
No, go ahead. Okay. That's fine.
All right, sounds good. So this was another item presented to the High Desert Water Bank Committee, and that they would support for the board tonight. This is consideration and possible action on approval of a purchase order with International Water Screens for fabrication and installation of hoods for the aqueduct turn-out, turn-in structures, traveling water screens. So this is a not to exceed amount of $33,280. And again, as Matt mentioned earlier with the checklist, this would be funded by a Metropolitan Water District. I just have a few photos here to hopefully visualize what we're talking about. This is the turnout structure at the High Desert Water Bank. The aqueduct, of course, is on the back side of this, but you can see this structure's got these screens. These rotate as they bring moss and fine materials up from the aqueduct so that those materials don't pass through into our pipelines and ultimately into potentially into the appurtenances and into the basins. So those rotate. The sludge is washed off not sludge, but moss and grass things are dropped into this trough. And then that trough returns it back into the aqueduct where it came from. So as those run, that's high pressure water spray that sprays that material off and into that trough, carries it back to the aqueduct. That spray, it's not only a nuisance to our operations staff that are working on the equipment here in the vicinity of those when they're running, but it's also can potentially cause some premature aging of some of this equipment. It is intended to be obviously for outdoor use, but this is pretty continuous especially during high moss periods within the aqueduct canal. And so those run quite frequently. At the Upper Amargosa Creek project, just as an example, but this is standard at all of Avek's aqueduct turnouts, is to avoid this overspray and mist at these turnouts. We've added these hoods. So the manufacturer of the screens themselves is International Water Screens. They did the screen and the trough here at Upper Amargosa as well as at the High Desert Water Bank. And they fabricate these hoods that go over the top of the screens, and then they trap that mist inside so it doesn't become a nuisance and cause any issues for that equipment. This is just another angle of what those hoods look like. You can see the screens here, they rotate around. We thought about putting these hoods on early on during the design of the High Desert Water Bank turnout, but being that this isn't a turnout at a treatment plant, we weren't exactly sure how it was going to operate. We opted to leave them off, knowing that we could add them in the future if needed. Now, here we are after a year of use at that project, and our operations and maintenance staff have been out there operating this for the last 12 months or so. And they've come to us at this point saying, those hoods that we left off, we really need those hoods. This is becoming a nuisance. It's, we think this equipment isn't going to last quite as long as it should. So we need to go ahead and do this now. So Doug Holmes, our operations manager, engaged International Water Screens for a quote for these. They are the only manufacturer of these, in the region at this point in time. And so they've been our go-to sole source to provide these in the past. And so they got a quote, $33,280 to fabricate and install these hoods at the High Desert Water Bank site. We've discussed this with Metropolitan Water District, and they're supportive of this. The committee was supportive as well. So the staff's recommendation would be from staff as well as the committee to support this purchase order in the amount of $33,280. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
It's a good report. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. So the Met approved this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll move on board order 8B2. That we accept the bid of $33,200.
Director Donato, 8B2.
Mr. President, I'll second that motion.
Second by Director Paris. There's no further questions or comments. Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good job, Justin.
Thank you. Good report.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, General Manager's report. We'll turn it over to our General Manager, Matt.
All right. Before we get into some slides, I wanted to announce a big milestone for one of our staff members, John Bozigan, Operations Manager, just last week celebrated his 35th year for the agency.
Wow.
As everybody knows, John's a huge asset to the agency. Very reliable, pleasure to work with, great mentor to the up and comers within the agency, and great mentor to all of us. Sets a great example for everybody here. And I'd like to just acknowledge that and say thank you for everything you do, John.
And I think we'd all agree with that. John, you do important
Yeah,
work.
I agree. Did you get him a cake?
Yes.
We did. We have a cookie.
Yeah.
Good. Cookie. No, he wants a cake. Okay.
Cookie with ice cream.
So we don't think we'll get another 35 years, but we're hoping for at least 3 to 5. Yeah. All right. And moving on to the GM report. I think Tom's up first. He's going to give a kind of an outlook of our upcoming weather patterns and where we're at with State Water Project. So this information was presented to the State Water Project Committee a couple days ago, and or I guess it was last week. So take it away, John. Or Tom, sorry.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Good evening, directors. As Matt mentioned, I'll just give you a little bit of an update on State Water Project, the weather outlook, forecast as we move into a new water year 2025. So as we move through this, let me know if you have any questions. But first, just to kind of give you an overview of the timeline, this is really was developed by the Department of Water Resources to give us a general idea of what the hydrology looks like in the state as we move through the water year. I added the top portion there, just showing you how the water year lines up with the hydrology and the different changes in weather. So the new water year begins on October 1st there, and that's shown on the top. And this is normally when we begin to see some rain begin to fall. This year may be slightly different, but as we move into November, December timeframe, December 1st is when we actually get our initial allocation from State Water Project. And that's about when we begin to get our 3 months of the largest amount of precipitation. We usually get about 50% of our annual precipitation in December through February or March timeframe. As we move into our peak snowpack season there in March, April timeframe, that's when we move towards our final allocation, which usually comes in May. Occasionally we'll get a little bit later, but it's usually by the end of May. And that's when the melt starts to happen right after that. And so that lines up perfectly, though, with our high demands that come here, in not only in California, but of course in the Antelope Valley. August is historically our highest demand month for water. So that if everything works out well, we get a nice snowpack, we get a peak melt, and then we move right into the summer months. And of course, we get the heat events, which are called out there in July and August. And then as we move into beginning of fall, we start to get what they call tropical events, which we've seen many of those happen. Even here in the Antelope Valley, we've had some tropical events, so unusual occurrences. And then at the end of September is about the time that they look to place targets on the reservoirs within the State Water Project. That's when they want to begin to look towards the next water year and next calendar year and make sure that they have enough in the reservoirs to handle the upcoming year. As far as some starting factors here in water year 2025, which again just started here on October 1st, we do have near average storage in the State Water Project reservoirs, which is really a good sign because they're either near average or above average. So that's a good thing. The Department of Water Resources is basically preparing for the extremes. As they've done in past months, they don't know if they're going to get heavy rains early on or if they're going to get extreme drought. So they basically put it in the middle there and they plan for both. We are, though, seeing dry, hot watersheds, which means, and that's a negative because with the dry, hot soils, we tend to get a lot of the runoff tends to get percolated into the soils rather than running off and becoming supply for us. So that becomes a negative. We are seeing improvements, though, in the Delta pumping regulations. That's a very good sign. An example of that is they relaxed the incidental take permit through an amendment recently, which basically allowed us to reduce our flows into the Delta region to protect fish. What that does is that allows us to keep more water in Oroville as we move into the next year. So that's a good thing.
Good
So,
news.
yeah, very good news. So, and that was actually really a push by the State Water Contractors Association to work with the Department of Water Resources and work with the fisheries and the Fish and Wildlife Group to try to basically put an amendment in there to allow us to give an extra month where we did not have to pump as much. So it really helped us out. They are looking now moving from a El Nino to a La Nina condition, which could be a slight negative. That means basically we're generally looking at drier weather here in the south and possibly some rain up in the northern portion, which could be a good thing, but that can also sometimes be a negative, which I'll look at that a little bit. I'll show you why that is in just a bit here. As far as state water project reservoirs, as I mentioned, all the reservoirs in the state really are sitting at about average historical or maybe slightly above. So that's pretty good condition to be really in all of the state. When we look at the forecast for all the U.S., but of course focusing on California, near term, over the next 6 to 10 days, precipitation there is on the left, with the temperatures on the right. So the precipitation, we are looking at a little bit potential of a atmospheric river possibly coming into the south there. So we may see a little bit above normal precipitation for the Southern California and drier in the north, which is, I'll show you, is going to quickly change. As we look at temperatures, below normal, we're kind of feeling that today. I felt that it's getting cooler. Feels like it's getting cooler. And so we're seeing below normal temperatures. Again, just the 6 to 10 day, because when you look out further, it changes quite a bit. Now you're looking at the month of November coming up here soon. Precipitation, equal chances of above and below normal. So nothing much there, but you'll notice the temperatures have gone back up. So it looks like above normal temperatures for almost all of California. So a quick change once we hit November. As far as seasonal, this looks at November, December, January into next year. Again, equal chances of precipitation, which is probably what you would expect to see with a La Nina type year. And then also the temperatures is what you may expect to see with the La Nina. You'll see higher temperatures in the more central southern parts of California. So the seasonal temperatures looking, above normal for most of California. And that's, again, is the 3 months of November through January. Now, if we were to compare that NOAA, that's NOAA information that we generally rely on, but many folks rely on the Farmer's Almanac. And so if you were to look at November's 2024 in the Farmer's Almanac, looks a little different. Increasing clouds coming through in the first week, storms coming into Pacific Coast with rain for the election day, it says. So more showers, widely scattered showers as we move through towards the last, half of the month in November, brief risk of a few showers, and then partly sun, which doesn't quite line up with what we saw in the NOAA predictions. But one thing I did see is that with the Farmer's Almanac as well, when they look at the whole of the winter outlook for 2024-25, it does say there in California, average temperatures and precipitation. So that's kind of what lines up with NOAA as we get into more of a seasonal look. And then you'll see the different types of weather throughout the U.S. according to the Farmer's Almanac. We've talked about atmospheric rivers before. I think you've heard of those before. This is some information, latest information showing, potential for atmospheric rivers coming into California. If you'll notice on the right there, that is a map showing AR. These are different levels of atmospheric river all the way from no atmospheric river to an AR5, which would be extreme precipitation. So, they're basically showing for the next week or so here, maybe slightly wet in the south, which is what we saw in the NOAA charts, actually. And then quite a bit of precipitation up in the northern part of the West Coast there if you go up further up into Oregon, Washington. Did want to show you, I mentioned La Nina years and how those things really don't really necessarily tell us exactly what we're going to see as far as precipitation. This is a history of the different La Nina years, and basically the intent of this graph is to show you that the light blue filled in section there is our average precipitation for the year, and you'll see though that their La Nina years are all over the place. They're on the bottoms, down in averages, they're well above average, on the tops. We have all these different water years, and it just goes to show you that you can't, even though you call it a La Nina year, we don't really know what that's going to mean exactly. It can mean some extremes, especially now as we, consider more of climate change conditions. This is the fun part. I think Matt's going to take this.
Oh yeah, I can take this. So if you recall last year at the beginning of the 2024-25 water year, we all took a vote or a guess on what the allocation was going to be. And if you remember on the screen, you can see what everybody guessed a year ago. And as you know, the final allocation for 2024 was 40%. So Director Dias was the big winner. He hit it on the nose.
Just say, if they hadn't, the steelhead trout had not blocked the pumps,
Yeah.
it could have been sent.
Then it could have been Miller or Paris or Van Dam. Yep. So, in keeping with no prizes, Keith, just bragging rights. So, so in keeping with the tradition, we thought now is a good time with the start of new water year, everybody to put a guess in for 2025. And it is voting season, so. So we'll go down the list. Holly will make
start off with,
Oh, go ahead, Frank.
No, I was gonna say, do I start off with Trump or what do I do? I don't know what to do.
We weren't gonna make it political, but.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry about that.
Holly, why don't you go down the list and.
Drew Mercy,
50.
50%. Keith Dias,
35%.
Frank Donato,
48.
George Lane,
125.
Rob Paris,
I'll do 40.
Audrey Miller,
Somebody took 25, 30.
okay, Gary Van Dam,
25.
okay.
All right.
George.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll make a note and see who the next year's winner is. Next slide. So a couple things on financial management. As you know, we're wrapping up the financial audit for the year ended June 30th, 2024. EDM Payne, who is our audit firm, is scheduled to present the audit findings to the Finance Committee on the 21st of November. And if that all goes well, then we'll have it on the agenda for the board meeting scheduled for Tuesday, November 26th. So good news there, or we'll see what the news is when they present the results, but hopefully it's good. And then I think you all saw the email I sent out. S&P Global Ratings did affirm AVAC's long-term rating of AA and stable. So that's good for the agency and our finances. The highest rating is AAA. So very, very positive news there. Next slide, please.
Does that mean, I got a question. Does that mean that we don't have to pay Wells Fargo any insurance now?
Yeah, we got rid of that, Frank, when we did the refunding the variable rate bonds.
I know.
I
was just joking.
And upcoming events, we got a couple holidays, Veterans Day on the 11th, Thanksgiving, last Thursday and Friday of November. Aqua Conference, first week of December. I know we have at least a couple directors scheduled to go. Probably not too late if you would like to be added to that. And then the Water Master does have a special meeting scheduled for December 10th. There is no Water Master meeting in the month of November. They typically cancel the meeting in November and have one meeting early December because of the holiday season. That's all I have to report unless there's any questions. Thank you, Tom, for a good presentation.
Okay, is there any any questions about good report, Matt?
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along with director's reports. Attorney's reports.
No reports, Chair.
Request for any future agenda items. Okay, we have one item to go into closed session.
Yes.
And that's regarding the water master, and we had a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. President, I move we go into closed session.
Motion, we have a second.
Mr. President, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy, Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lake.
Yes, motion passed. Let's take 5 minutes and we'll reconvene.
Thank you. Stand by.
Stand by or sit down. Okay.
Recording stopped.